Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Life Chronicles and Deep Dives podcast. I'm here with Coach Cornelia, all the way in Romania.
Hello.
And my name is Coach Mike Ranjit, and I'm here in the United States. Today, we're going to be talking about motivation, what it is, the different forms of it, how to set goals, and what to do during hard times to maintain that motivation. So I'm going to start it off with the basic definition of motivation is like the reason or drive that a person has to do something or like achieve a goal. With that, everyone's got their own individual like reasons as to what they're doing. They each have their own goals. They each have their own motivations, reasons why they're doing those things, right? I mean, this could be very simple. This could be like from waking up at a certain period of time to going to school, researching something, donating to a charity, whatever it is, working out, having a specific workout goal. Like all of those things are different types of like motivations to achieve a goal.
Well, I feel that the hardest part is to maintain it. So, the Monday motivation, we're making those lists and we're gonna keep our words this time. And then that's where I find the most difficult to keep it up just like in the first day. And I know some people that are feeding themselves with that motivation every day and it grows. So I have a friend who not just 4 years ago, he got a divorce. And he decided that he's gonna buy a house on the sea, a house in the mountains, a motorcycle, and a beautiful car. And today he told me that he did just that. So for 4 years, his mind was only on this goal.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking that's great to be so motivated and to keep it for 4 years, to
For
keep your
4 years.
motivation for 4 years. Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, that's pretty intense. I mean, sometimes like so we'll get into like I guess we could swing into like the how to keep the motivations, right? In like harsh times, right? So like I actually find I personally feed off of the hard times. So if you hit me with a challenge, right?
Mhm.
I take that energy from that challenge and I use that to drive myself forward. So I use it as like fuel or motivation to get myself to the goal that I want to do. Whether, let's say somebody says, I need to work out more, right? I mean, now I'm taking like negative input, right? What I'll do is I'll take that negative input and not necessarily saying that I care what they think, but let's say if I take that while I'm already working towards something, I can use that negative
Mhm.
energy, transmute it into fuel, positive energy to push myself forward and exceed generally the goal that I have set. So to maintain goals, to maintain motivations after hard times, for some, may be easier than others. Just because of that, we'll get into the different types of motivations, but that internal drive
Mhm.
to
Yeah.
achieve more.
Most of the times, at least in my friend's case, is anger. So he
Yeah.
transformed, and that's beautiful, to transform something bad in something so great, like achieving your goals, working for yourself, and being at his age now, he's fulfilled and he's got a new family, and it's great that he managed to change this bad thing into a beautiful thing.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there's some people that like say, I'm going to do this, and and then they do it, right? And then there's some people that say, I'm going to do this. They start doing it, and then it kind of like fizzles out, and then they maybe
Mhm.
refine that motivation. Something happens, and they refine that motivation later. So let's talk about like the internal and external, intrinsic, extrinsic motivations. So intrinsic is going to be coming from within. And so like that's probably the best, it's kind of like the best kind of motivation because
Mhm.
it's
Yes.
internal. It's driven by values, beliefs, internal strength, and willpower.
Mm-hmm.
Extrinsic, external motivation is driven by reward. So you're going towards something for a reward. Now, the internal one, it sounds like your friend, he was working more in external, extrinsic, right? He wanted all
Mhm.
these things, right? That
Yeah.
was the reward, and so that drove him to do it, right? Internally, like let's say we've talked about like my previous relationship, my abusive relationship. That's where that internal motivation came from. So like instead of
Mhm.
absorbing all of that negative energy, holding on to it as negative, like I said, I've taken that, twisted it around into positive internal energy to drive myself to the next level, which is, like all the courses I've taken, like starting my own, like the personal training and life coaching business, right? So, like, to use the negative forward, that's internal, that's willpower.
Yeah.
Now, I did say something like a few weeks ago. I think you know this. I was like, I'm going to buy a motorcycle. And so, not a few weeks ago, maybe a few months ago, but I bought the motorcycle a few weeks ago.
Mhm.
And so that was the external, right? I usually say if I'm going to do something, I would usually end up doing it.
Mhm. How I felt it from the outside is like you've had a fuel that was driving you towards your goals. And
Mhm,
I could feel that nothing can stop you. You had
mhm,
a period of time that when you achieved so many things so fast and nothing could stop you. And that's amazing to be able to transform the bad things into good ones.
mhm. Yeah, I mean, it makes you like, I mean, so to some people, right? Now, this is a little bit off topic from motivation, but when you start to make those changes using that internal motivation to build yourself up, to grow, when you start doing that, you have to shed the things that are not allowing you to keep that motivation. So you
Mm-hmm.
have to get rid of, it could be, I mean, I say get rid of, it's more like you have to remove yourself from things that are not allowing you to achieve your goal, right? It could be
Mm-hmm.
people, could be places, could be things,
Yeah.
whatever it is. If you have a goal to achieve, those things have to be, like let behind in order for you to move forward.
Oh yeah. But talking about internal motivation, I have this problem with teams that I'm working with. Their leaders think that their main reward motivation is the external motivation, the rewards you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's not like that. So most of them are they are looking for this the personal satisfaction, the internal motivation. And when you ask, I mean, mostly in the west part of the world, I think when you ask the leaders what their employers want, they're gonna say more money,
Mm-hmm.
a better position. But it's not. I mean, when you look at the statistics, it's not like that at all. They just want to be satisfied at work, to feel that they mean something, that they bring something good for the company, for example, where they work. So it's very interesting to see when you tell them what the employees really want. In fact, not the rewards.
Mm-hmm.
They just want. I mean, if you don't feel that you belong, and if you don't feel that you're satisfied at work, no matter how much money you get, no matter what position you have in the company, you're not satisfied,
Mm-hmm.
you're not motivated anymore. That's
Right.
that's how it is.
I mean, there's a lot of people that are motivated by money. I mean, we've got people that do OnlyFans, right? I mean, they're motivated by money, right? But there are times where, like, you hear stories about like businessmen that are like, okay, well, they reached this thing, they did this, they thought that this job was going to be great, and then they realize that that's not what they wanted,
Mm-hmm.
and they leave. Or, I mean, I say businessmen, but I'm saying like employees, they go to a place, right? It's like one of the top things that a lot of employees want to feel is heard, understood. And then if you can manage those two things while also giving them the tools they need to succeed, you can lead them effectively to lead themselves. So
Yeah.
you're taking an external, obviously the money's there, right? They got to get paid. You
Mm-hmm.
take that external motivation, it's a bonus on top of the internal motivations that you can actually give your employees if you treat them right.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's too many who can resist being motivated only with the external one.
Mhm.
So if they don't have the internal part where they feel that they bring value to the company and they're appreciated, I don't think it's the money are enough. So anyway, the statistics are saying that the money are not enough, and it's very interesting because everyone thinks that life is a jungle, you have to fight for it, but everyone just want to be appreciated, and that's what fuels us in the relationships, in at work.
Mhm. So I think these employees are staying in jobs now with the economy the way it is,
Mm,
even though they don't want to be in that job, they have to by necessity. So the external motivation is the necessity to be in the job.
yeah.
But I mean, you're right. Leaders, effective leaders, can internally motivate their employees to succeed. And I think that's missing in a lot of companies, a lot of businesses. Every
Mm-hmm.
once in a while you see like companies with like internal reward programs or like little kickbacks here like that. But are those motivations manipulations? So let's say a company has an internal reward program. They're giving the employee a kickback a little bit. Maybe it's like, 45 cents on a dollar if you achieve X sales goal. Or you get a little card that says, hey, you did a good job. Here's why. And then if you collect so many of those, you get a day off, right? Those rewards, those external motivations, so they drive the employee to achieve. But what do they also do? They also drive the employer's sales up. So is it a
Yeah.
manipulation or is it a motivation? I think it's a little bit of both. But it's
Mm-hmm.
interesting to look at how companies use the reward system
Mm-hmm.
to uh, in increase their employees' productivity.
I mean, we are manipulated everywhere in any form and anyhow these days, and a good manipulation doesn't hurt, you know. But it's what bad is when there are so many employers who are thinking, I'm giving you a bread to eat, so it should be enough, you know.
Mm-hmm.
That's when the problem comes, and sooner or later, no matter how financial difficulties people have, they're gonna leave.
Mm-hmm. Now, I've worked for people that, I mean, I know we're sticking in the workforce here, but we can move, like out of that. But I have worked for people that believe that, like let's say they give you an overtime, or let's say they're um, doing this, doing that. Those people believe that they're doing you a favor, right?
Sure.
Right.
Mhm. Yeah.
So I have seen that before. So rather than I mean, and it's possible, right? So they like let's say you need the money. They could be doing you a favor by offering overtime hours. But let's say you don't need the money and they're still thinking they're doing you a favor by giving you the overtime or like allotting you overtime. That's
Mhm.
where it gets kind of like cloudy, I guess. Because what's the motivation? Well, the
Yeah.
company's going to get more productivity. They do have to pay out more. So there is a big trade off, but the favor comes with the economy and the
Mhm.
economic shifts.
Yeah.
Most external motivations tend to be fleeting. So let's say if you have a goal and you've seen this, right? Behaviorally across your life, my life, you've got this object that you want to get. Okay. So that's your external. right? Let's say I want to buy this pen. This pen is like, $1,000 pen. So I'm saving, I'm thinking about this pen, I'm researching this pen. I mean, I'm making this up, but it could be a motorcycle, right? Or a specific car. You're
Mm-hmm.
researching the pen, you're researching the motorcycle, you're like, I'm gonna buy this. You're looking at reviews, you're watching YouTubes on it, you're doing whatever, and you're spending all of this time towards this one thing. The problem is that once you get that one thing, what do you need? Something else. It's kind of like the hook, line, and sinker. So when the employers are using the external motivations and you achieve something, now you need to achieve the next thing to get that
Mm-hmm.
dopamine rush. I mean, so essentially you're getting like a mini uh like dopamine rush, serotonin, what the good feelings, right? You're getting that
Yeah.
from the pre-buying whatever you're looking at, right? But as soon as you buy it and you've got it, it's fleeting, right? You've got it, you've played with it a little bit, you've used it, whatever, and then you need the next big fix.
It's so annoying.
Right? Or
Is
you
it?
have to have the next best thing, right?
Why?
I mean, it's kind of like it's technically like a drug addiction. You're addicted to
Mhm.
the dopamine rush in yourself from the external reward that you'll be getting, right? And that's why it's interesting to see so many companies using reward systems, right? Businesses, they use reward systems, external motivations, right? And to get customer loyalty, right? Almost every company on the planet has um, a rewards program or a points program or something like
Yeah.
that, right?
Yeah.
You sign up
Me.
for this, they've got an app. You get extra
Mhm.
savings if you use the app. You save so many points, or whatever, you get, a discount or free something or another, right? They're utilizing our internal drive towards external reward to get us hooked on something. If you're getting a reward, that dopamine release happens every time you get that reward. So what do? We've talked about this before. Towards pleasure, away from pain. So what are you
Mhm.
going to do? You're going to go towards that external reward every time.
They're training us actually.
Correct.
Yeah. And I was thinking now when you were talking, I was thinking about how before this crazy capitalism, how was it before? I was wondering what was the motivation for those people. Because back in time you couldn't think about like buying something, not even a small thing, because people were very poor. We're not talking about the higher classes. The medium, the or the low classes were very poor and they couldn't afford anything. So what was their motivation? I think it was the sentimental one, maybe
Mm-hmm.
having kids, making helping them to grow up and get a better life. Maybe I don't know.
Mm-hmm. I would say it's definitely sentimental. So, like, if they're purchasing something or they're moving towards something, a lot of it would be necessity, right?
Hmm.
Especially in the lower and then middle class,
Yeah.
most purchases are going to be most things that they're going to be driven towards are going to be necessity based or something to move their kids forward. Not so much luxury. Right now, you get into the higher classes, their reward is constantly luxury. But what do you see? We've seen this where money isn't everything, or these people that like win all this money, and then even people that win the lotto. I don't know if you guys have a lottery over there, but basically you
Sure.
buy these tickets and then you win.
Yeah.
You rarely
Hmm.
win money, but like even the people that win big money, guess what? They run out of that money. They blow it all real fast, or they get sued to oblivion, or like they don't. They're not smart with it. Whatever happens to them with that money, they're typically not happy, right? Because
Yeah.
they've got all this money, right? They won the lotto, they can buy all these things, but it doesn't really fulfill them. And that's where we're gonna be switching. I'm gonna come back to internal now.
Yeah.
You need internal motivations to override external rewards. So
Mm.
Hear me out. Drug addicts, alcoholics, people that smoke cigarettes or addicted to nicotine, anybody that bites their fingernails, uh, does like a ritualistic thing, whether it has a chemical, additive that makes it addictive, right? Or something, I don't know, like biting their nails, right? I used to bite my nails all the time. So it takes an internal motivation to actually override the external reward. Case in point, a drug addict, right? Sure, they can get medical help, but all of their drive comes from internal, right? If they want to get clean, right, they have to want to get clean first. They can't
Yeah.
just sit there and keep shooting up
Hmm.
and get clean at the same time. They have to want to get clean, or they have to want to stop smoking or stop drinking in order to achieve the goal. The external reward is the alcohol, the nicotine, whatever drug of choice they're trying to do. Maybe they're addicted to gambling, right? External reward, gambling. How do you override that? You need the internal motivations to do that, because you can't handcuff yourself to a chair. I mean, I guess you could handcuff yourself to a chair or have somebody lock you in a room to get you to stop doing these things, but you'll still want to do them. It isn't until you decide that you want to stop doing something that you can override the external reward.
Yeah. I've always felt that I mean, you can have the external reward. It can fulfill you if you have the internal one as well.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have the internal one, the external one might be just for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I feel you can have the external one without the internal one.
Mm-hmm.
You still have to have this feeling of satisfaction
Mm-hmm.
in a way or another.
Yeah.
Because money, even if you let's say you have a very good job and you get a very high amount of money every month, right? If you're going to work and you don't like it there, and
Right.
if you don't get along with your colleagues, if you don't like get along with your boss, if you don't feel that you're appreciated, the money won't matter. Maybe it will matter for, I mean, the motivation won't keep you there.
Right. You'll try to find some place that's more fitting, or someplace that you can, I don't know, like fit in where you're appreciated, right? Because like nobody wants to be someplace where they're, constantly, being dogged on.
That's when someone can be very strong. Let's say you want to buy a house, that's your goal.
Mm-hmm.
And getting a job that you hate, you just hate it, but you're still going because you want that house.
Mm-hmm.
But that's because that house might mean something internal for you,
Mm-hmm.
like bringing your family there, or getting your parents into that house, or whatever. It depends on the person. But if you're buying the house just for a business, you won't be motivated.
Right. Got it. So, okay, I get what you're saying. So, like, let's say if it's like family, there's some sort of sentimental, like personal value that's attached to the reward, the external, right? You'll stay in the job
Yeah,
to
even if you
get,
hate it.
yes.
Yeah.
Hmm. I mean, I call that suffering. So I see a lot of people, and we've talked about, this. People are willing to suffer a lot in order to achieve an external goal. In order to stay in that suffering to achieve that external goal, they have massive amounts of internal drive,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
right? So yeah, I mean, that makes total sense. So how does somebody move away from, let's say you've set a goal, you've done something for so long, right? It kind of fizzles out. That motivation fizzles out. What do you think brings them back to driving towards that goal?
Yeah. That's always so subjective. You can have triggers like I don't know, maybe someone sees a movie and
Mhm.
they remember how they felt in the moment where they decided, I want this. Maybe someone just gets into sometimes it's this pattern we go into, at least in my situation, for example. I'm saying I'm gonna do this for a while, I'm doing it for a while, and then things come into my life. I'm trying to do everything and help everyone and so on, and I'm getting far from it. And then so it's this pattern, and I remember, okay, I was supposed to do this, and I'm going back to it, you know? Sometimes you just have to remember why you're doing something. For me, the hardest thing is to keep I cannot say no, you know? So if someone asks me something, I forget that I have a goal,
Mhm.
and yeah, I'm sometimes spreading myself in so many directions, and sometimes it's enough just to remember and to decide. And you're allowed to, I don't know, go get away from your goal and go back to it and get away or change your goal. And so we are allowed to do all these changes in order to make us feel comfortable in our lives.
Absolutely. So we're talking about, let's say this, the stagnation period in motivation is common word is procrastination, right? So like, like you got a goal. Even if you have a goal, you may procrastinate to start achieving that goal. And you're right. There have been times where I've been like watching like a martial arts movie and I'll be like, oh, I'm gonna work on my kicks, right? And I'll do it
Mhm.
for a while. And you're right. It is a procrastination rekindling cycle, right? Because I have so many things going on in my life, right? It's almost like you got very little time because you got all of this web of things that you have to do. You have this very little time to do in some cases everything that you want to achieve. So you have to like meter and like space out what you want to do, right? But I'll watch a martial arts movie. I'll say, oh, I want to work on my kicks. So then I'll start stretching and I'll start working on my kicks.
Mhm.
Then I'll come up. I'll stop doing that for a while and then I'll watch another martial arts movie and then get right back into it.
You
So
know,
it's
with it
a vicious cycle.
is, I so much hate this word procrastination because um, it has like guilt value on it attached to it, and everyone who's talking about it feels guilty. So we tend to feel guilty when we are not doing what we're saying. I'm gonna do this, and we're not doing it. Then we feel guilty.
Mhm.
The guilt is the worst feeling we can have. We just have to throw it in the garbage. We don't need this.
We don't need it. Okay.
Yeah, we really don't. I mean, it's guilt will never motivate us.
So guilt could be used as a motivation. Think about it like this: when police do interviews with like with suspects, they use that internal feeling of guilt. I mean, sociopaths and psychopaths aside, they use that internal feeling of guilt to get the confession, right? They use that and even let's say you did something wrong, right? If I did something wrong, that guilt, in order to alleviate that guilt, I'm motivated to tell the truth, right? I'm motivated to correct what I did wrong. So in some cases, those are two different cases, but like some cases that could be good to use guilt, to have that guilt. I think because it makes us humans.
Oh yeah, I feel that we should replace guilt with shame. It's a much better feeling. I mean, I'd rather be ashamed of what I've done rather than feeling guilty.
Okay.
And feeling guilty just brings you like a negative self-image, and then you don't feel good about yourself. You start to hate yourself sometimes because we people, we are making mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
As long as if when I'm ashamed of what I've done, it's like I feel that it's like a more constructive feeling,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and the motivation is better than, I don't know. I just hate this guilt feeling. I want to, and with the teenagers, I think the parents always try to feel us guilty. And when I'm working with teenagers, I'm trying just to convince them that feeling guilty is not a good option. You can be ashamed but not feel guilty. That's how
Mhm.
I think about That's how I feel about it.
So like let's say if they were guilty, right? They could work towards correcting that feeling of guilt and move into feeling shame. Let's say if I back to the pen, I stole the pen. Right now I feel guilty about stealing the pen. So I go back, I give the pen back, say, "Hey, I stole the pen." I walk away from there. Um, and they're like, "Okay, well, you came back and so you told us that you stole the pen, right?" I can walk
Are,
away from there with
are you
shame.
sure are you sure that you're feeling guilty, or are you feeling ashamed?
Well, that's a good question. I don't know how to determine between the two. Guilty because I know I did something wrong. But then like after I've done it and I've alleviated that guilt by undoing what I've done wrong, then it goes into shame. Man, I feel bad that I did that. I shouldn't have done that, right? Rather than I'm actively doing it, I'm guilty. It transitions to, man, I shouldn't have done that. Maybe next time I'll make better decisions. And then we go into acceptance where it's like, okay, well, I made a mistake. I need to learn from that mistake. And then we move from that into, okay, this mistake that I made, I'm never going to do it again. I'm going to work towards being a better person. I need to forgive myself for making that mistake so I can move forward in the world. I mean, that's the way I look at it. But, I mean, maybe you have a different viewpoint.
Yeah, the in my opinion, the guilt and the shame, or feeling ashamed, it's the guilt brings with it so many bad feelings about yourself. When we are kids, the parents are making us feel guilty about something. And the guilt comes with these bad feelings. We are not worthy, we don't like ourselves. Um, I don't feel the guilt takes us to changing what we've done.
So it's environmental. So, like, who's constantly pushing this guilt? Who's constantly pushing this shame onto these individuals? I know that, like, for instance, like narcissists, they don't tend to stay in. They actually hate shame. That's one of the probably the biggest feelings of negativity that they can feel is shame. They don't necessarily feel guilty, but they definitely do feel shame, and so that is something that can motivate them to change their manipulation tactics and change their behaviors. Shame, right? Um, case I just want to be clear, I didn't steal this pen. I bought it, paid for it. So, like, let's talk about the fact that when motivation runs out and somebody has to pick that back up, let's switch back to that cycle. So, like, let's say I've been motivated. I've been I don't know. I pick, everybody picks up these little things. Like recently, I was like into painting, earlier this year, right? And I'm like, I want to do that. And I've been saying, hey, I want to do that, right? But then my life is so filled with other things that hasn't come back to the front lines yet. But every once in a while, I'll be out and like we'll see something and that'll spark that drive. I say I want to do it, haven't got around to it yet. So how do we fix that procrastination?
It's different for everyone.
Mhm.
I don't think it's a general recipe. It's a pattern, of course. You can follow these patterns with different kinds of people, but it's not a general recipe that saves you from procrastination.
Right. So how to set the goals, right? I think a lot of people's lives are so full now that whether they're working, like they're doing this, doing that, they got to do this, they got to do that. I mean, I'm saying that there's like so many things that has to be done every
Mhm.
single day, um, that when they see the things that they want to do, right? So they're motivated to pay the bills because if you don't pay the electric, you don't pay the water, you don't have electric, you don't have water, right? You don't pay the mortgage, you don't have a house, right? Those are, it's like a punishment reward payoff. So it's like, it's weird kind of weird punishment motivation going on there. But if we look at like me doing the painting, how could I easily achieve that? Well, I mean, I've got the solution maybe to my own problem. I just need to engage with it. So setting that would be like setting the goal. And how to set a specific goal is using like SMART goals. And I've mentioned this in some of my other like personal videos and other podcasts, right? So SMART goals, the specific, measurable, attainable, um, uh, reasonable, and then like time bound, right? So like we've got these SMART goals, and when you build them, they need to check all those boxes, and then we could do that. So I could, if I were motivated, I could create a SMART goal that I'm going to start painting on this day or by this day, um, or I'm going to complete the painting by this day, because then I can measure progress throughout, right? So like it's important to do that if that's something that we're specifically keying. But then that brings us back to that cycle of what comes in importance. So it's like the universe or our galaxy with the sun in the middle, and we're the sun. And then we've got all of these planets that are circling us in different orbits around us, right? And each of those things is something that we need to do, but they swing around, like let's say we're looking this way and they swing around behind us and we don't see it anymore. And then it swings back this way and we start to see it. And that's where that motivation kicks in to do it. But if we don't do it by the time it gets to here, that it disappears, right? I think that's just an interesting metaphor that I kind of was thinking about. Like how do we see things? We see it in this pattern of cycle of motivation.
You know, when I'm talking to my clients, I'm always telling them, find what's important for you. First of all, I think knowing ourselves, it's the first thing to do.
Mhm.
And then we have to prioritize things. And unfortunately, we don't have time to prioritize ourselves. Like, I have a passion, but I cannot follow my passion because I have to go to work, I have to take care of my kid, I have to do this and that and clean and so many things to do. And
Mhm.
then at the end of the day, I look in the mirror, I don't matter, you know? And if we start to, it's going to sound weird, but we shouldn't think so much. Uh, when when I'm saying I'm going to paint this week, I'm just taking the what are you painting on? How is it called? I don't know in English.
Like a
That
canvas or something.
okay, you're taking that and the the paintbrush, and just start doing it. Don't think about it anymore.
Hmm.
Just do it. Just take it and do it. And it's something I'm always teaching my daughter to do as well. So she's always say, I should do this. And she just keeps thinking about it. But she's not doing it, right?
Hmm.
Tomorrow I'm gonna do this. And then the days goes by and she says, tomorrow I'm gonna do this, and the day goes by. Just like the grown-ups are doing. So it's common in everyone, not only grown-ups or not only kids or teenagers.
Hmm.
Don't think about it that much. Just take the book and read it.
That's a good point. That's a very straightforward way to like get it done. As soon as I think I want to paint, I can just go over there and start, if it's in front of me, like if I'm at home, right? I guess it's important to like what's in front of it, what we're capable of doing. So like we've got to find a achievable goal and then move towards that. So like if I was out shopping at a grocery store and I said I'm going to start painting, well, I want to keep that in the back of my head.
Sure,
Most
yeah.
likely it may not get done, but I don't have a means to do it immediately then.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's an interesting way to look at it because like if I say, hey, like right after this, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna start painting today. I pick up a paintbrush and then I start, maybe I just do the background or I just, set the base color. Just by doing that, I think it's important to also stick with remembering that any amount of success is good. right? And to remember that. So like taking
Yeah.
a big goal, breaking it down into small goals is also, it's part of the SMART goal method, but also like in general, if you bite off too much, you may not be able to eat it all, right?
Hmm.
Your eyes are bigger than your stomach, but your goal is too big for what is available right in front of
That's great what you said, because sometimes when you get when you choose a bigger goal, you won't achieve it.
you. Mhm.
You won't, just won't. It's so hard to do it. If you start with smaller steps, we talked about this, breaking the bigger goal in smaller goals,
Mhm.
and taking it day by day. Let's say you want to let's say you want to paint the moon. Okay, then the first day you're gonna paint the background, then the next day you're gonna paint the stars, and then you're gonna paint the moon, and then you're gonna paint the shadows. If you decide that you're gonna do the whole thing in one day, that's something that I think it's impossible.
Right. I mean, it'd be overwhelming almost to,
Mhm. Yeah.
I mean, somebody could do that, but here's the catch. Like, I mean, the governments, they got us working so much, like you go to work, you're not, like we talked about this before, you're not at home. You're out of your home doing other stuff more than you are at your house
Mhm.
awake, right? You're at your home, but you're asleep. You're mostly at work, out shopping, running chores, taking your kids to soccer practice or, whatever, driving in transit. There's so many things that are filling up our day that we need to focus on the little things, breaking down a big goal and taking those small steps to get there. And I think that keeps the motivation. If I set a
Yeah.
huge goal of,
Mhm.
right, if I set a huge goal of like, oh, I'm gonna, do this or do that, I don't know, give me a huge goal. You're one guy, he bought like a house, motorcycles, whatever. I mean, those are pretty big goals to buy, to get.
But
Um,
imagine if he said, I'm gonna do it in 6 months. That's
yeah,
impossible.
right. That would have been a lot harder than spreading it out over 4 years. Yeah.
Mhm.
I don't know. I think for me, like a big goal right now, one of the biggest goals that I have is to buy a yacht with a Class A hull, so I can, travel, around the world. And I don't necessarily know how to break that down into smaller goals, except for, I'm like looking at how do I get the money? How do I make the payments? How do I pay for the gas? How do I pay for the insurance? And then I'll buy, like once I've got all that figured out, then I can buy the boat. Because if I buy the boat, but I don't have a way to pay for the gas, the insurance, make payments on the boat or buy it outright, if I don't have those things set up, where am I going to moor it up? Where am I, you know what I mean? Um,
No, I don't, because we are women, and we would just buy it because we like it. Mostly if you like the color. We would buy it, and then we're gonna ask the men to pay for it and figure it out. So
yes.
yeah, I'm trying to get away from the independent feminist, and think like, so yeah, I can understand what you're saying. You want to have a very specific plan that brings you like solidity
Mhm.
when you're buying it. Yeah.
I mean, and I've done other things, right? So it didn't just launch my, like life coaching, personal
Mhm.
training, yoga, martial arts. I didn't do all of that, narcissistic abuse. I didn't like on my website, my programs, right? I didn't just do that all at once. And Cornelia, thank you for helping me build that website and, kind of get those programs set up. But I did it little by little. So, I got one, I did martial arts since I was a kid. So that was already built in there. Then I got personal training. Then I got life coach, right? And I slowly built that up. And then after that, I built the website. So now I have the business. Then after that, we've got our YouTube channels, right? So we each have our own respective YouTube channels. We each have our own websites. And we've got this joint Life Chronicles and Deep Dives podcast built in. Those things didn't happen in one day.
Sure.
That's what it was in 2 years we're building this up. So
Mhm.
I mean, it took took some time, but it also took motivation to keep it going. And sometimes I can tell sometimes like I'm like, I'm still in bed, or like I just like I feeling that the drag, but we're still motivated to show up for this podcast. And I think that's important because the things we talk about, sometimes we talk about fun stuff. Today we're talking about personal development. Um, Last week was AI. Next episode, I think, is going to be, I don't know, we'll figure out something fun. So like there's always something new, and we always have these great conversations, and it's really good that we keep that motivation to keep that going, because I know we don't have like a whole bunch of subscribers yet, which reminds me, please, if you're watching this video, to like the video, subscribe to the channel, check out the links in the description box below for our websites. Don't forget to check out our own personal YouTubes. We can link those also in the description box. Um, and I think staying motivated is important. Whatever goal you have, stay motivated. Cordelia, closing thoughts.
I was thinking about what you're saying earlier about the government. And what I feel is like we have to fight it. Um, I know it's hard and we are overwhelmed. Sometimes the prices are crazy in Europe as well, just like in the States. You need two jobs, maybe three, uh, to get over every month. We shouldn't give up on ourselves, because if we lose ourselves, if we lose our passions, if we lose what we love, we won't be motivated. Just gonna be like animals, just doing the same old thing every day, without satisfaction, without happiness, without feeling fulfilled. So what I'm doing, I so first of all, we have to be gentle with ourselves. This is one of my mantras. We have to be gentle with ourselves, and then we have to get back on the track and accept that we're gonna go off the tracks all the time. In this crazy life, something will appear. It's
Mhm.
the school calls, my parents need me, the friends have a problem, the work needs me again, and so on. Just accept that it is what it is, get back on track every single time. That's how we fight it. Just get back there, and it's gonna happen.
Mhm. Absolutely. Thank you guys for watching this episode. We'll catch you in the next one.